Hey everyone, welcome back. We've got another great video for you tonight all about the Iraqi dinar, and honestly, there's a lot more ground to cover beyond just that. The Central Bank of Iraq just dropped a massive 64-page report laying out everything it has accomplished and changed over the last 5 years. This thing is packed with details about what Iraq has been doing to upgrade its banking system, tighten up its financial standards, grow digital payments, and get more connected with how the rest of the world handles money. So let's get into it. One of the biggest things this report covers is the complete overhaul of Iraq's banking sector. Iraqi banks have been putting in real work to meet stronger rules on how they operate, how transparent they are, and how well they're governed. The report makes clear that the goal is to bring Iraqi banks in line with the kind of international compliance standards that the rest of the global banking world already follows, things like cracking down on money laundering and keeping a close eye on financial activity. What's really interesting here is that major global audit and consulting firms are literally on the ground in Iraq, going through these banks and helping them get their houses in order. And we're not just talking about private banks, this includes the big government-owned banks too. Iraq is serious about cleaning up and modernizing the entire system. Now here's something that should really get your attention. Iraq has seen serious growth in electronic payments and digital banking. The central bank is pushing hard to get people away from using cash for everything and into a modern digital financial system. Officials say this is a critical move for bringing more people into the formal banking world and dragging the whole system into the 21st century. And it doesn't stop there. Iraq is now actively talking about blockchain licensing. Yes, you heard that right, blockchain. Iraqi authorities are looking at digital financial tools and emerging technologies that could completely reshape how banking and economic development work in the country. While nothing massive has been rolled out yet, the fact that they're building out the regulatory and licensing framework for blockchain technology tells you a lot about where things are heading. On top of all that, the central bank is laser-focused on keeping Iraq's exchange rate stable and protecting its financial reserves. These aren't just talking points. Maintaining stability and keeping confidence in the financial system are literally listed as top priorities while all these reforms are happening at the same time. What really stands out here is the timing. Iraq is pushing all of these changes while also working on economic diversification across multiple sectors. Banking reform, digital payments, international compliance, these are no longer side projects. They are the core of Iraq's long-term economic game plan. And look, when the central bank publishes a detailed 64-page report covering 5 years of work, that's not something they do casually. Financial observers are taking note, pointing out that this gives the clearest picture yet of just how far Iraq has come in rebuilding its financial institutions from the ground up. The central bank is basically saying to the world, look at what we've been doing, look at how far we've come. The bottom line on this first section is simple. Iraq is actively modernizing its banking system, raising its institutional standards, and expanding its digital capabilities, all while working to get more aligned with international financial practices. This is a big deal. Now let's move into the next layer of what's happening, because the central bank and Iraq's new government are both pushing forward together, and the coordination between them is becoming more and more visible. Recent reports and official discussions are painting a picture of a country that is actively reducing cash dependence, holding its monetary stability steady, and getting itself ready for a much deeper role in the global financial system. Let's talk about the cash problem first. Iraq has historically been a cash-heavy economy, and the government knows that has to change. Electronic payment systems and digital banking services are being rolled out and expanded as part of a much bigger modernization push. Officials keep hammering the same message: more electronic transactions, better payment infrastructure, and more people using real banking channels instead of just carrying around physical cash. But here's the bigger picture behind all of this. The push toward digital finance isn't just about convenience. It's tied directly to financial inclusion, getting more Iraqi citizens connected to the formal banking system. And that comes with stronger oversight and transparency across the board. Officials believe that when you combine better access with better monitoring, you end up with an economy that runs more smoothly and is a lot harder to exploit. Meanwhile, the central bank is not letting its guard down on reserves and exchange rate stability. Officials have been very clear and very consistent. Iraq's monetary position is solid and it is being actively managed. Exchange rate stability isn't something they're willing to gamble with, especially right in the middle of all these big reforms happening simultaneously. And speaking of big reforms, Iraq's banks are working to check all the boxes when it comes to international compliance. We're talking anti-money laundering standards, also known as AML, and combating the financing of terrorism, known as CFT. On top of that, Iraq is also working toward ISO communication standards that connect banks across global financial networks. These are the same frameworks used by major financial systems around the world, and Iraq is actively working to plug into them. The international audit and advisory firms are still in the mix as well. These are outside experts reviewing Iraqi banks, looking at how they operate, how they're governed, and whether they meet global compliance expectations. This process is ongoing and it's being described as absolutely necessary for building real confidence in Iraq's banking sector long-term. Now here's something worth noting about Iraq's new government. It's being described as placing a serious amount of focus on actually executing on economic plans and coordinating between institutions. That means the people running the money and the people running the government are working more closely together than they have in a long time. That kind of coordination doesn't happen by accident, and officials keep highlighting it as a key piece of the reform puzzle. Recent high-level meetings between financial and economic officials have been focused on keeping everything stable while pressing forward with banking, trade, and digital infrastructure reforms all at once. That is a serious juggling act, and the fact that they're doing it says a lot. What's coming through loud and clear from observers watching all of this is that Iraq's reform strategy is no longer fragmented. It's a unified push to build stronger financial infrastructure, hit international compliance benchmarks, and connect Iraq more deeply with the global financial system. This is a country playing a long game, and the long game is looking more credible by the day. So let's keep going, because there's more happening on the ground level that ties directly into what you care about. The Iraqi government and the central bank are continuing to push forward on financial and administrative reforms together, and the results are starting to become more visible across multiple fronts. One of the standout moments recently was a meeting of Iraq's Financial Stability Council. This is the body that brings together the fiscal and monetary side of Iraq's government, the people who handle the budget and the people who manage the currency, in the same room, talking about coordination. Officials described the meeting as part of a wider effort to lock in financial stability while the reform process moves forward. That kind of institutional coordination matters. There's also been talk about Iraq's political environment becoming more stable and organized. That might sound like background noise, but it actually matters a great deal for economic reform. When government institutions are focused more on delivery and less on political fighting, reforms actually move. Observers are noting that reduced political tension and stronger cooperation between institutions could be one of the most underrated factors in how fast Iraq's modernization agenda progresses. Now let's talk about two names you need to know: Rafadain Bank and Rashid Bank. These are two of Iraq's biggest state-owned banks, and they are actively in the process of being restructured and evaluated. International audit firms are still involved, still reviewing operations, still pushing these banks to meet global standards. This is not a done deal yet, but it is moving. And here's a piece of news that is genuinely exciting. Officials have signaled that banks that fully meet international compliance requirements may soon be allowed to conduct transactions in foreign currencies beyond just the US dollar. That's a significant expansion of banking flexibility, and it points toward Iraq wanting to plug into regional and global financial systems in a more meaningful way. On the currency front, Central Bank Governor Ali Al-Alak has been clear and consistent. He keeps emphasizing exchange rate stability and pushing back hard against any speculation about devaluation. The central bank is using its reserve management tools and monetary policy to protect stability, and officials keep making the point that maintaining confidence in the banking system is the #1 priority right now. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Digital transformation is now spreading beyond banking into government services. Courts are being modernized. Land registration systems are being digitized. Public administration services are being upgraded through new digitalization programs. This is huge because it means Iraq isn't just fixing its banks, it's rebuilding how its government functions from the inside out. The investment in electronic systems, financial technology, and institutional upgrades is all part of a long-term strategy that officials describe as essential for economic growth and better public services. Analysts watching Iraq's trajectory are noting that the coordination between the government and its financial institutions has become one of the most visible and consistent features of the country's economic strategy right now. And here's where things start to get really interesting for those of you watching the Dinar situation closely. Recent discussions around Iraq's economic reforms have started focusing heavily on diversification, regional stability, and how Iraq fits into the global financial and trade picture. Non-oil revenue growth, trade corridor development, and regional cooperation are no longer just buzzwords, they're active priorities backed by real policy moves. Let's start with diversification. Iraq knows it cannot rely on oil forever, and the push to grow other parts of the economy is very real. We're seeing investment in trade infrastructure, modernization of customs operations, upgrades to transportation networks, and new projects designed to build non-oil income streams. Officials have been direct. Growing non-oil revenues is critical for long-term stability and for reducing Iraq's exposure to swings in global energy prices. Part of this push involves implementing major international systems. The TIR transport system is being brought in to streamline how goods move across borders. The IQD customs modernization platform is being set up to make border operations faster and more efficient. These are serious, globally recognized tools, and Iraq is putting them to work as part of a strategy to become a key regional trade corridor connecting neighboring markets. This trade corridor strategy is directly tied to Iraq's bigger goal of deeper global integration. Government and financial officials are talking constantly about connecting Iraq more effectively to regional and international networks, not just financially, but physically through transportation and trade infrastructure as well. Banking reforms, digital systems, customs upgrades, it's all being packaged together as one coordinated effort to strengthen Iraq's position in the global economy. Now here is the part that many of you have been waiting to hear about. Recent commentary from financial analysts has increasingly pointed to what some are describing as improving conditions for a possible future managed revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Let that sink in for a second. These discussions are being driven by the combination of banking modernization, strong reserve management, expanding digital infrastructure, tighter regulatory systems, and better coordination between the government and the central bank. No official policy announcement has been made. Let's be clear about that. But some observers are saying that the current institutional environment represents one of the strongest periods of preparation for a potential currency move that they have seen in years. That is a significant statement. What's also being highlighted is the fact that all of these reforms are happening at the same time, not one after another, but simultaneously. Banking modernization, customs reform, digital transformation, infrastructure development, and trade expansion are all moving forward together. Some financial commentators are calling this a convergence, meaning multiple critical pieces of Iraq's economic puzzle are clicking into place at the same time. When you hear that word, convergence, in the context of the dinar, pay attention. And the momentum appears to be picking up speed. Economic observers are pointing to growing activity across financial institutions, trade systems, government coordination, and modernization programs as signs that Iraq's long-term reform agenda is actually accelerating. The process is still gradual, but it is increasingly visible and hard to ignore. Regional developments are also playing into this. Reports have been circulating about a possible agreement between the United States and Iran, and analysts are paying close attention because of how tightly Iraq is connected to both countries economically and geographically. Any easing of regional tensions could have a direct positive impact on trade stability, energy exports, and overall investment confidence in Iraq. One specific area drawing attention is the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical oil shipping routes on the planet. If tensions ease and access through that strait becomes more stable and predictable, it could mean lower shipping and insurance costs for Iraq and other regional energy exporters. That's a real economic benefit that feeds directly back into Iraq's financial stability. A calmer region overall is also being seen as a tailwind for Iraq's reform agenda. Investors need stability. Businesses need stability. When the regional environment is more settled, it becomes easier to attract capital, grow trade relationships, and push through the kind of institutional reforms that Iraq is working on right now. When you step back and look at everything together, banking reform, digital transformation, trade corridor development, customs modernization, currency stability, regional dynamics, and the possibility of a managed dinar revaluation, what you're seeing is a country that is genuinely building towards something significant. Officials and analysts alike are increasingly framing all of these individual pieces as parts of one larger strategy aimed at making Iraq a stronger, more connected, and more credible player in the global economy. That's a wrap on tonight's breakdown. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this with your family and friends. We'll see you soon right here on Dinar Intel Hub.